I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Erica Lukes. Happy to be here and share the love. I am always grateful to see the people that support my show get in there. We have a very cohesive and intelligent group of people that bounce ideas off each other and support the show. I could not do this without your help. I want to give a big hug and love to my friend who is supporting my show. Northern UFOs does such a great job getting information out on YouTube and all sorts of things and posting in chat. I appreciate it very much. As you know, this show is quite controversial. And when I first started in UFOs, when I really became public, I, much like most of you out there, thought that we were all working together for a greater good, for a common cause. We were exploring the unknown, and we all know that there is something phenomenal taking place, that there are things around us interacting with us. What they are, we don't know. But unfortunately, I've uncovered a series of things that have really angered me and have put me on my path to make sure that each and every one of you who is coming into this for the first time or, has been doing this for a long time, you might have more insight into the players involved, the organizations that are completely corrupt, the three-letter agencies that are getting involved to steer the narrative, stories that have been told to create a narrative so they can covertly do other things that potentially could harm people. It is a big, I just have never seen anything like it. And because I've done a series of interviews with Phil Leech about MUFON and their very questionable background and dealings. And also you have Bigelow Aerospace and Bass and some of the things that they were doing that are now coming to light, questions that we have, stories that have been promoted. It is absolutely fantastic, but we need to get this information out. We have been manipulated far too long, and if we don't get a clue, it is going to continue, and it will get worse and worse, and the history of the subject will be erased forever and rewritten. We can't let that happen. So my two guests tonight are going to share some interesting things. I also have more interesting information I'll be revealing throughout the show tonight. I am here right now with someone that I want to just say is very brave and kind to come forward. Her name is Michelle, and she lived and visited her grandfather that was on the periphery of Skinwalker Ranch. He lived there for 30 plus years, and in the 90s started having some very interesting sightings. In the 90s, let me stress that. So, Michelle, I want to just thank you for coming here. We have spoken and been communicating because we're both starting to learn more information. And so thank you so much for taking the time to share your story.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me on, Erica.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about your grandfather?
Yes, so he lived down there. I mean, they've always been down there. Like you said, for that particular piece of land was about 30 years, maybe a little bit more. He knew the original owner of the ranch, Ken Myers. He knew him personally. They did a lot of work around the property in that aspect, when they would dig ditches and stuff like that. So he knew them personally. He had cattle down there. And yeah, I mean,
And it is interesting because you mentioned the Myers, and by all accounts, they never felt that there was anything paranormal that had taken place there. And I find that very interesting, whether that could be, perhaps a religious idea, or people don't like to talk about this, the community is very small, or whether there really wasn't is the $1,000,000 question.
yeah, well, my grandpa, like he always said, if you talk to people about that kind of thing, you're just smoking the wrong kind of weed. They just had that belief where you didn't talk about it because people would think you're crazy. But, looking through some of the stuff that was documented with my grandpa, Ken had actually told him that he had locks on his cupboards in his house. And those locks were still there when the Shermans bought it, but it was to keep the blue balls of light out. So thinking about that, I don't know how much he believed this stuff wasn't happening, because you really can't deny that with him having the locks on his cupboards, that something strange was happening with blue orbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blue orbs are very interesting. I believe that's what reduced the Sherman's dogs to hides and a grease puddle. But that is also, it's very curious. But let's talk a little bit about the interview that was conducted by Junior Hicks and James Carrion.
Yes, and Frank B. Salisbury
yes,
was for his
thank you.
book. Yeah, so I'll kind of refer to the interview because I don't really want to leave anything that's important out. But it was in 1997, so after Bigelow bought it. He was talking about how he would go out every 2 hours to change the dams in the ditches, and he would have them set up to where he'd just go out and he'd yank it and the water would go down to the next one, and he'd do that every 2 hours. And I believe it was a summer evening, and he said he went out and he took a big slug of water, just meaning that he had a lot of water to get, around his fields. And I'll kind of read it from the interview. So it's not a problem if I use the Uinta Basin grammar, is it?
No.
Okay, because I think I'm just going to read it from the interview so I don't leave anything out.
Great.
So he said he went down there. It was about 2 a.m, and he had just stepped over the fence to pull the dam out. And as the main road turns to go over the hill, the sand hill, he thought that there was a helicopter checking the power lines. He said that Deseret Generations would occasionally check that power line, but he said that they would never do it in the dark and that they wouldn't have a reason to. So there was a bright light, and he said it was quite a ways away at first, but the closer it got to him, the brighter it got. He said it was a white color. He wanted to describe it as an arc welder light, and it was inevitably coming right toward me. It wasn't changing its course. So he first saw it over by the power line, and it was like it noticed him, and it went straight to him. And he said he would describe it over and over as an arc welder light, just so bright you can't look into it, but even if you're looking to the side of it, it still hurts your eyes. So he said in another part of the interview that it was so bright that he thought it was going to burn him to nothing, to where there was nothing left. So he did the only thing he could think of, and he dropped down in the ditch full of water. The only thing sticking out was his mouth and his nose, and he covered his eyes because it was just that bright that he couldn't see anything. And he said that he didn't think he was going to survive that light, but he said it wasn't hot, and there was no sound at all. And as quick as it came, it went, and it went towards the rock. So I guess what you call Werewolf Ridge, it went straight into that direction. And he just kept thinking, I'm going to hear a crash. I'm going to see an explosion. Something's going to happen. And nothing happened. He said it was like it disappeared right into the ridge right there. And he just kept waiting for that explosion or that crash. And he said, common sense says it didn't have time to go around the ridge, but he also said it was so bright that even if like the ridge had opened up, he wouldn't have been able to see anything, but it just disappeared into that ridge. He said it was about 3 to 4 feet in diameter. And like he said, there was no sound, and that's what really scared him. But he said he couldn't see a frame. He couldn't see a shape. He couldn't see edges. It was just so bright that you couldn't look at it. And then it was just gone.
And I mean, all of that, and especially now that I am learning more and more about what other people saw while they were at the ranch and other people in the surrounding area, that's just simply amazing. What did he, continue, because I know that there's a little bit more there, so I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's just amazing.
No, you're fine. I guess he talked to other people, and they were talking about how like the Air Force has holograms, how you can display a picture on a rock and things like that. And he was just like, I don't think the Air Force would have been down there with me. Just kind of looking over it. Were you referring to something in particular?
No, and I think I just I want to say, and I just posted this in chat. There's an article from Military Times, and in this article, it's entitled "Pentagon Scientists Are Making Talking Plasma Laser Balls for Use as Non-Lethal Weapons." So the laser induced plasma effect program is part of the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Dictatorate program to find ways to deter, stop adversaries. And then it also states the use of directed energy or lasers includes heating up a target's skin to an extremely uncomfortable levels without burning or blasting. And also giving voice commands, which we have heard time and time again from different reports of people that were at the ranch. They were at specific places and given, heard voices telling them to stop, stop, turn back. And it's just fascinating to me. And so what other experiences did your grandfather have? And I know that you had experiences as well.
Yeah, so the only other thing I remember my dad talking about, and my grandpa was very, like, if I tell you this, you're not going to tell anybody because I don't want people thinking I'm crazy. It's a very small town. He had a good reputation. But I do remember my dad would talk about, he would see the little blue orbs dancing around his power lines. And his power lines are pretty far from his house. I would say maybe 400, 500, 600 yards away. But he would see those little blue balls of light just dancing around, under his power lines. And the only other thing was, he said when he was about 8 years old, he would have to go herd cattle back onto his property. And they would go in the pitch black, and they would go to what is now known as Skinwalker Ranch, but then it was just another ranch. They didn't know anything. And they would go at about 11, 12 o'clock at night, and he would take his horse and go round up their cows and bring them back. And he said there was a cave on Skinwalker Ranch that they would go into. And, the landscape down there is that sandstone, that red sandstone. So if you take something like a key or even a rock, you can, rub in a pattern or a word and it will stay there. But they would go into this cave, and he would take bags and he would scrape off the salt from the inside of the cave, and they would take it back, and he would make ice cream with it. They would freeze the ice cream. And he said that there was a trail worn into where you would walk into the cave. And you could see that because they had gone into it so many times that it was just worn in. And he said, after all this started coming out and all the stories with the Shermans and, Bigelow buying it, he was curious. And this was before they had guards. And he went back and he found it. And he said there was nothing there. But the trail was still worn in, like you were walking into this cave. But the cave was just gone. It was just flat. There was nothing there. And he said it didn't look like it collapsed. It just looked like it was there and it was gone. And he had wondered at times, could that have been a portal? And he said in the interview, when the beam of light happened, he said, I don't remember anything. I never saw anything happen before that. And I never saw anything happen after it. And he said, I made it a point to look after that happened. So, those very few experiences, he looked and he looked and he never saw anything after that.
And I just think that's a fascinating and important point to say that happened, that sighting when Bigelow bought the property. What does that mean?
Right. And it was right after they bought it. Well, I think they bought it in 1996 or 1997. Mm-hmm. But yeah, right after they bought it.
Oh, that's interesting. And you were up there a lot. Did you ever see a lot of activity at the ranch, or what happened with you, and what were your feelings as to what was going on at the ranch at the time?
Yeah, from 1996 to about 2012, I was down there. I was basically raised down there. I think the one thing that really got under my skin was the chattering power lines. I don't know. I'm sure you've been there. Have you heard that chattering that the power lines, that chirping noise?
You know what? I haven't. I did not notice that. I was so, taken back by everything else that was going on. But talk about that a little bit.
So they just made a really weird sound, and I've never heard power lines make this sound. I have not. I've never heard it. But it almost sounds like as if the wire was stretched from pole to pole and somebody was yanking it down. And that sound of it going up and down the wire, that's the best way I could describe it. But they did that all the time, night and day. And, when my grandpa would get on his dirt bike and we'd go up to the pond or whatever, and I always used to ask him, what is that? Because it's weird. And he's like, oh, I'm not sure. He's like, they just do that. And I've never heard it anywhere else.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is. And he also talked about how the ground would fluff up. So if they had farmed underneath, so, if they were badlands and they never farmed, the ground wasn't affected. But wherever they had farmed, and when they put those new power lines in, weird, when they put those new power lines in, the ground raised up, it fluffed up if it had been farmed under, so badly that the ditches, they had to dig furrows because the water wouldn't flow right through the ditches. So they had to make little furrows and new ditches, because once they put those power lines in, the ground basically raised up.
Do you know what year the new power lines were put in, or the approximate time?
I don't.
Okay.
I do not.
Okay, that'll be an interesting little adventure for me to try to find that out, and I want to stress the point here too. That there's Native American, there's a reservation abutting the property, and unfortunately, from what I have been told, it would be a little bit easier to conduct testing without people's knowledge in that area. We've seen examples of that throughout history, but it's very curious. What other things? I know that you mentioned the lightning strikes and the trees, and that was a good story as well. That's interesting.
That one, let me see. Oh, it had to have been maybe 2008, 2007. Yeah. So I don't know how that really correlates with anything that happened down there. That was just a really odd, more or less creepy type of thing. His neighbor, I believe it was the Betts, and she had called saying that there was a tree that had got struck by lightning the night before. And he went up, and he went up and helped her first, and then he came back to the house, and we went down there, and then he took us up on his dirt bike because he refused to touch anything. And he took us back up there, and across the road there were those milk thistle flowers. And they were just perfectly, they almost looked like they were all the same length. And they were lined up, you know, just straight across the road. And they all pointed to this tree. This tree had been struck by lightning 3 times that night. And it was in 3 different places, and you could see it, and it broke. And he was extremely, don't touch anything. Do not touch those milk thistles. Do not touch that tree. Like, he knew there was just something wrong about that, and just do not touch it. Don't step on it. Y'all can look at it, but then y'all need to get away from it.
That must have been so incredible and a little unnerving to see that, for sure. And that's when the lightning.
That was before cell phones.
Well,
not before, but I don't think I had one.
The lightning in that area, I mean, when the storms roll in, it is so intense and beautiful. But yeah, that must have been frightening. We've got 3 minutes before for break, and I want to thank you for being here and talking about your grandfather. What do you think your grandfather would say about some of these current findings? How do you feel, and how do you want your grandpa to be remembered?
Just his bravery, honestly. For him to go through what he went through and to see all these things, my grandma, she never really left her chair, and she denied everything that happened. None of this stuff was real. There was absolutely nothing going on down there that was strange at all. So really just his bravery and the fact that he went through that. He did mention in the interview that in a random part, he said, I figured we'd be shaking hands with them by now. And at first, I didn't really get that. And he wasn't the kind of person to really believe in that stuff. So, yeah.
I wish I could have met him. And, it's amazing to hear stories. And I think that is important, especially around the ranch and things. And like I said, I can't thank you enough for having the bravery to come here. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about it, but I'm sure your grandpa would be really proud of you. And I know that you and I are going to be keeping in touch. So
yes,
we've got we've got work to do and information to get out there and all sorts of things. So just thank you very much for being here, and I will get in touch with you soon. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. And I want to just encourage people to make sure you're listening to or go back and listen to the Chris Marks, Chris Bartell interviews. Also, over the years on UFO Classified, I've interviewed people like Zach Van Eck, who was the reporter that broke the story for the Deseret News about the ranch. I've also interviewed a couple times Dr. Eric Davis. We know his involvement in that, and it's interesting to go back and hear some of the words that people have said. Also, Dr. John Alexander, who was involved with NIDS and is involved in the UFO community and is a non-lethal weapons testing. He did that for his career. Anyway, we're going to take a break. Phil Leech is up next, and trust me, this is going to be another one for the memory books. You got to love it. Okay, we'll catch you after the break.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you about UFOCon 2020 in San Francisco, February 20th through 23rd. A conference like no other, UFOCon is where experiencers are going to reveal new information and science and consciousness will collide. So get your tickets at UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com. Don't miss what will be the most talked about conference of the decade.
Signal.
Looking for cutting-edge conversations while exploring quantum possibilities? Then look no further. We've got to fix it. Broadcast Team Alpha, hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. They're connecting the dots and unraveling the cosmic mysteries with interviews from top experts, embedded insiders, and whistleblowers from around the world on an array of topics, from health, wellness, consciousness, and ufology, all in pursuit of the truth. Broadcast Team Alpha, hosted by Nori Love and Augie Nost. Live Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The balance of power is shifting in the world today, and the old paradigm is being replaced with a new one filled with love, positivity, and prosperity for all. The only question you have to ask yourself: are you ready for a change? Broadcast Team Alpha. Come explore the quantum possibilities.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
If you love them enough to barely sleep, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Now you ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world.
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I can assure you that this is one of the only shows where you're actually going to hear the truth as I know it. I am not in this to seek fame or fortune, because clearly we know I've spent a lot of money on this, but I am passionate about getting to the bottom of things. I've had incredible experiences throughout my life. I know that they deserve to be respected and researched, but I've also uncovered a lot of corruption, and the UFO community is full of it. It is a perfect place with no oversight. Most people don't have professional or ethical standards, including some of the big boys that like MUFON, like Bigelow and co. And I think this is deeply concerning. And as a result, because there is no control or oversight, anything goes. People are manipulated. People's personal information is bought and sold. We saw this a couple times with regard to Bigelow and MUFON. We look at the John Carpenter affair, where abductees' files were sold with all of their information, very personal information, to Bigelow. And then also we look at the big database purchase that took place, and I have to wonder if that is not still going on. My friend and colleague, who I respect a great deal, has been a whistleblower with regard to some of the corruption that has taken place at the hands of an organization that is supposedly a nonprofit and operating for the benefit of mankind. Anyway, on that note, Phil, thank you. Phil Leech has been on the show many times. And Phil, thank you for coming back. I have to say that you are truly my hero because you actually do what most people don't have the integrity or gumption to do. You actually get out there and call things out. And that is critical, especially right now. As you know, we've talked about this before, there's a big push to buy data. What is going to happen with that data? We're going to talk about a little bit about that, but let's go back to where we were when you were on the show last. You mentioned that there was a big potential purchase underway from MUFON.
Yes. I had spoke with, I'd heard kind of there was going to be some big project in the works. I'd heard that. And I thought, well, let's see if we can find out about that. And so I made a phone call to one of the board members on MUFON, and he confirmed what the project was. It was purchasing the CUFOS database with the starting price of $20,000 to get things, digitally copied, up to $50,000. Now, to me, it seems like a lot of money. But, I would hire some college kids for $10 an hour, let them do it. But still, that seemed like a huge amount of money. And since we spoke last, so I made some phone calls, okay? And I'll go into why I make these phone calls. But I made some phone calls because this bothers me. When the push to gather the databases began by Chris Mellon, these people had these databases. Some of them were calling me extremely upset. They thought they'd been infiltrated, or attempted to be infiltrated, and et cetera. So, they didn't quite know what to think. So, since then I made some calls. The CUFOS database, and this is a done deal. I can't say it's a done deal, it's going to happen, but on MUFON's end, they approved the money, or the board has, I guess, to get this project going. CUFOS database is split into two different places. One is in Michigan, the other one is in Chicago. Now, the one in Michigan, and I was told that the way I understand it is, the one in Michigan, 80 to 90% of it's already been copied digitally to where it's available. There's some people that have it. So really, what are they spending that kind of money for? I guess the data in Chicago, I don't know how much that would be, but that still seems excessive amount of money. And then I find out, and this is just from a little bit of research, that I believe CUFOS might actually have NICAP files. So they're actually going to gather up, now these are hard copy files, they're actually going to gather up two organizations, case events all at the same time. And you have to ask yourself why.
There's so many whys. It's like the more I learn, and I just am absolutely shocked. There is no moral compass anywhere, involved with this. And I have to, I've been kind of pounding the drum on this for years, saying that we need to really look at what's happening to the data, because the data is getting funneled off to specific places where people don't have full access to it. Why is that? And, you and I both saw what happened with the Elaine Douglas files. And for those of you who are listening for the first time to the show, Elaine Douglas was the state director for MUFON in Utah. She worked for the organization for decades and did extensive research. She was an incredibly bright woman. And she started seeing red flags and started, especially when Bass came into the picture and bought the database. She was very concerned, did research, found that there might be some questionable tax dealings, she thought, and also was really looking into Skinwalker Ranch and other things. But she ended up getting fired from MUFON, and her files were taken by a woman in Oklahoma. I was headed out to Oklahoma. I had made arrangements. She had given me the files and told me many times that there was enough information in those files to destroy the organization and to expose people in the organization. And she also then, after the plans had been made, she sent me a very simple message saying that Jan Harzan had stepped in to get the files. I did speak with, and we've I mean, to me, that was just so amazing. Of course, those files will never be made public until now because I've got most of them now. But anyway, I mean, it's like, why in the heck is this organization collecting data? And where are they getting the funding for this? What is that about? We know the Len Stringfield files haven't been scanned. They're not available online to the public like they were supposed to be. We know Craig Lang, who was an abduction researcher, all of his files are now with MUFON, will never see the light of day again. And then, so on and so on. And so we've got this interesting letter that went out to the MUFON members talking about what MUFON had intended to do with the $20,000 to $50,000. But could you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, about the letter? Yeah. I was on your show on a Friday. I think it's a couple Fridays ago, and that letter went out 4 days later on a Tuesday. So me and you kind of got the jump on that, on that little tidbit of information. But that email went out to all the MUFON membership, basically explaining they going to purchase the CUFOS files and they're going to get quotes starting, they assumed around $20,000 to start with, just to get quotes from different people to do this. You got to ask yourself, I mean, you don't have to read between the lines a whole lot. You have Chris Mellon wanting databases, and he called some researchers that I know asking about databases and some things, and it's not hard to find them, right? They're on the internet. But yet he calls these people straight up and says, "Hey, I basically want your database or your hard copy files." He got turned down. A week later, Jan Harzan's calling and asking the same question. It's not hard to read between those lines. Chris Mellon didn't have any luck. He went to Jan and had Jan do it. Now, do I think MUFON's paying for it? Probably. They'll probably use their checkbook. They'll probably write a check. I'm not so sure that they're not getting reimbursed. If they're not, just come out and tell us. You shouldn't have to hide something like this. I think, if everybody's working together on a common good and for mankind, just come out and say something. Their way of being quiet won't work in the ufology community. Their respect will be gone. No one will trust them. To the Stars Academy is going to steal their reports anyway, I think, in the end, with some of their apps they got coming out and all this type of thing. I think they're going to put her on MUFON. I don't think they're smart enough to see that. They've been developing their own phone app, according to them, for a long, long time. I hope they get it done. I think To the Stars Academy is going to beat them to it. And I think that MUFON is going to be second fiddle at some point. They're already falling way behind the way it is.
I mean, there's virtually no respect left for this organization. I mean, let's get real.
No. I mean, let me tell you how bad it is. They banned me from the MUFON site. They have my IP address to where I can't look at the top 20 cases. Okay, it's kind of funny. It's just ridiculous. It's just, and I shit you not. I could change my IP address and change all that, but I haven't done it. Just because, who cares, right? Because I can go look at them all over the place. These things are out there. But I was looking at the MUFON site, and I bitched to Jan Harzan for quite some time about the Science Review Board. Still had Robert Powell's photo on it and his name, and they got 8 or 9 Science Review Board members and all that. Well, I looked today. I didn't see Robert Powell's photo and his name on there, but the Science Review Board still exists. Well, I got news for you. It doesn't. All them people quit. Jan does not have a person over the science end of things with MUFON. He's tried. If he does, come out and say so, Jan. Quit lying to everyone. Everyone in MUFON, when you start, this is what bothers me the most. When you start with MUFON, you believe in what you're doing. As long as you don't work your way too far up the ladder, that's when it becomes a little messy. But you believe in the goal. You believe in what you're doing. You're very, you're trying the best you can. But to me, it's a Ponzi scheme, the whole thing. They claim they have a lab. They claim they have a dive team. They claim they have all these things. As far as to this, as of some time ago, I was told dive team's never been deployed. The lab is a minuscule thing that doesn't count for anything. Okay, trust me. The Science Review Board disbanded way back to 2 years ago. So all these things they say they have, and you go to their website and you see this stuff, it doesn't exist. Okay, you could call them up right now with a good case and say, wanted land in my backyard. They wouldn't know, one, to get someone there would be a chore. Two, if they took any samples at all, I guarantee you they wouldn't know what to do with them. How do I know that? Because Jan used to call me all the time. We had these conversations. I had these conversations with many MUFON people. I know someone that did a case in one of the western states that a UFO landed. That investigator had to have the person who lives there. Now, there's people in this state that could have went. The new DOI, I forget what he's called, that's DOI, Director of Investigations, Doug Wilson, he was contacted and said, hey, we need to get somebody over here. This guy's got samples. He's got photos. It never happened. Nothing. The investigator had the person who lives there go out there and dig some dirt up and throw in bags. So for them to say they're effective or they're for the benefit of mankind or they have all these assets, just prove it. All you got to do is prove it, boys. Okay? Enough of your lies. Come out. Show us all. Shut me up. All you got to do is shut me up. Okay? But if you're going to bullshit your entire membership over and over and over, eventually it's going to catch up with you. And let me tell you what is going to happen, Mr. Harzan. You sell them goddamn databases to someone and it has any information to MUFON, because every person there is, we told everybody your information is safe. It will not go anywhere. If you sell photos, which has metadata on it, which means they can track down to longitude and latitude of where that person lives and that photo was took and possibly find out who the witness. You do anything with any of that, I guarantee you there's going to be a class action lawsuit. It's already been talked about widely. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, yep.
So, I apologize. Go ahead. I'm going to smoke a cigarette. No. Go ahead.
I mean, you and I are both very passionate about this. And I think it's because, A, we care about the people that we work with. We care about the subject. And, I'm sure there will be the smear campaign that will come out and say, oh, we're just complaining and, blah, 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 MUFON bashers. Actually, we're here to make sure that other people don't fall victim to the same types of things that we have. And we're here because we care. This isn't easy for either of us to go down this road. I certainly didn't want to have the experiences I had in MUFON. But now that I'm looking back at what happened to me when I was state director, we had a really big case. It was a mass daytime sighting, October 2nd, back in 2014. This was also, these objects were sighted in Colorado. And that made national news. And it was very strange to me because, I did a FOIA request, did my due diligence, really talked to multiple witnesses, yada, yada. And I also, there's no transponder data on these that we could get from these objects. But I reached out to certain people, certain investigators, certain people who'd been in MUFON for a long time and said, what do you think about this? It was highly unusual. These objects were not behaving like a weather balloon or, A, B, C, and D. And what I was told by higher ups is that these objects were Google loon balloons. And it was curious to me, these were actually objects that were going over the NSA, which is the most highly restricted airspace in the world. And it was very curious, but, I spoke with the FAA several times. I did research. There were no Google loon balloons in North America at that time. And so why in the world, when you have a daytime mass sighting, are people writing it off? And I found that incredibly curious, and now looking back, it's all making sense because they're not really there to promote the truth.
No. They have no control. They have they've created a situation where they have little control over the state. State director is the big dog when it comes to making decisions in the state, and I respect some of that. Okay, but the problem you have is when I first started MUFON here in Indiana, my state director, along with my assistant state director, would always want to change our dispositions, or what we found with the case. And a lot of times I didn't understand it because I thought I had it right, okay? But it was changed. We was kind of made to change it. As I moved up in MUFON, I was the chief investigator in Indiana, I kind of put my foot down and said, hey, you want to change it? You go change it yourself, but you put a notation in there that you did it. Well, come to find out, the Indiana state director at the time and the assistant director was doing nothing more than keeping any of the important cases off of MUFON National's grid. They did not want them to know these cases existed because they hated MUFON National and didn't want them coming in Indiana and messing with any of their business. So all these cases, I think we had 20-some investigators then, at just tons and tons of cases that was made to where there wasn't nothing to them and no one would pay attention to us. So how many years did that go on?
Right.
You know, so it's pathetic. I mean, each state runs itself in some weird way, and they all got these special little cliques and groups, and you know, it's there's good people in MUFON. I'll say it. I always say it. There really is. If you want to investigate UFOs, I guess that's where you go. You know, just don't go up too high. Just don't go up too high, because that's when you start finding out the silly shit that they try all the time.
Exactly.
Okay, you know, as long as you're just investigating cases, I think you'll be just fine. But unless you get a good case, and then they're not going to know what to do with it. You know, it's a horrible thing. About the files, going back to the databases. Here's another question, Mr. Harzan. Answer this. Good for you. You're gathering up all the files in the databases, and you're going to put them in one place. Your website says it's available to researchers worldwide. I'm a researcher. Okay, if I come look at your files? No. Erica's a researcher. Guaranteed she ain't come to look at them. Your letter said your membership will be able to view them. That means you got to pay to play, right? Now, I could be wrong, but before CMS, which is what the current system they use to put information in, there was a system called Pandora, or Pandora files. So this probably went in the mid-90s up to, you know, early 2000s, and that was a system that they used. All of those reports, now there might have been a few. I know few people's worked on getting some of them crossed over to the new system, but very few. All of those reports are just sitting somewhere in a database that can't even be accessed by any MUFON field investigator or state director. Prior to that, they have hard copy files that's never been crossed over. Now, the CUFOS files are all hard copy files. You're just going to have more boxes of files. What are you going to do with all this? You can't even take care of your own files and get them put into the current system, but yet you want to go collect other people's things. So what are you going to do with it? Who are you giving all this to? Because MUFON's a business, right? They make money. At the top, they make money. It's all about how much donations do we get. What's it cost to survive per year? What value does all this have to you? It can't be bragging rights. Not the way they think. It cannot be bragging rights. It can't be the betterment for humanity and all that crap. What is the benefit of having all of this unless you plan on making money off of it? That's my thought. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong.
Well, and I think that, you know, we've seen the decline of people that are the membership of MUFON, and also, you know, people that are doing investigations. And so now perhaps they're understanding the importance of gathering data and the fact that they can make some money doing that, which is, I don't know, but I will say that what I understand is that, you know, they're going in to scan and restore these documents, and that does, you know, it does take manpower, it does take money, but then what is going to happen with them once that takes place? And this has been, you know, when we look at the data and files and different things, there are a couple different groups that have a vested interest in sweeping this up. And this is deeply, and it should be deeply concerning to all of us, because the history of this subject is being rewritten. These files will disappear, and a younger generation will look to, you know, TV to tell them things. I mean, all we have to do is look at the show Project Blue Book, which a lot of people, unfortunately, are looking at that and thinking that is reality. It isn't. By a long shot. And so this is a really critical time, and we need to ask serious questions about where this information is going, who is behind it, and, you know, what is the main goal here.
Absolutely. I mean, for them to be quiet and not say, here's how I look at this, and it's a simple terms. Pretend these are ice cream cones, and NICAP has ice cream cones, and you know, New Fork, and all these. if you own all the ice cream cones, you can do what you want. You can charge what you want. You can never make an ice cream cone again if you feel like it. So all of these things, what people don't realize is these different organizations with these databases, it might not do investigations like MUFON does, but it keeps everything grounded. Everything is spread out, okay? But you can't put it all in one place and think that's going to be successful, depending on what mood them people's in. That won't work. Greed gets way past everything. When you own all of the pie, you can do anything you feel like. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. Because right now, that there's got to be value to this. If you have a Chris Mellon and Jan Harzan chasing databases, it ain't because they want bragging rights. By no means. There's got to be, especially when you got Chris Mellon doing it, they've got vested interest in this to a great extent. It's in their playbook somehow. Will they make a statement? Who knows? Are anyone going to tell the truth? Who knows? We'll probably never know. We'll see some stuff on television at some point, probably. But it's upset a lot of people in the world of ufology. Again, a tiny place, but a lot of people's very upset about this. And this will work its way down to the field investigator level. They'll hear about this because word of mouth travels fast in a tiny little place that it is. And they're going to start questioning methods and the morality of the whole thing.
Absolutely. And it's been interesting. I remember when I was in MUFON and things, it's like there's always this big effort to, we're working the database. We need funding for marketing. We need, blah, blah, blah. Now it's we need A, B, C, and D. And none of these other things have ever really happened. It's like, I don't know. There are lots of questions I have. And then when you also, because I've been researching MUFON for years, and I've also had a huge network of people who have as well that have been giving me information about their dealings and their tax information, yada, yada, yada. But it's the whole thing is just very curious. And I want to say, and I don't know if James Carrion's blog is still available out there, but he had a great blog, and towards his departure, which is, we've heard lots of different accounts about that. Towards the end of that, he wrote some interesting things with regard to him questioning Bass and the MUFON connection. We're going to take a break. We will be back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news. KCOR Las Vegas.
All the time.
Of course I listen.
I listen all day. It's the best music.
KCOR, the new underground source for news, talk, and music at KCORradio.com. Tell your friends, email them, or Facebook them, or Twitter them.
Hey, are we done here? Because I'm losing my buzz.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the airport. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I love Friday nights on KCOR. I want to just give a shout out to Tina Marie, who is the best producer and station owner that I know. She operates with integrity and treats her hosts with great respect. I can't say enough. I love being here. I understand that there is something incredible taking place. That's what brought me here. I know that we deserve answers. We're never going to get them from our government. We're going to have to look overseas and look at places like Norway to look at the good research they're doing, or look at the work of Dr. Massimo Teodorani, or look at NARCAP, who actually investigates commercial and military pilot sightings and has put out incredible research papers. We look to these places for answers, but we certainly don't look to our government. We don't look to the stars, at least I hope we don't. And we don't turn to MUFON. It is my opinion, as we have seen over the decades since the late 40s, that UFO organizations are infiltrated. In the case of NICAP was infiltrated by the CIA and shut down. And then miraculously, around the same time period, here comes MUFON. When you look at some of the people that are involved higher up in MUFON and you look at their backgrounds, so that's certainly an interesting endeavor. And I highly encourage all of you to do that. That might give you some clarity. But why would organizations like MUFON be so intriguing to the intelligence community? Well, of course, they can gather and funnel UFO experiencer data, and they can steer the narrative. They can help make UFO, the whole subject, look ridiculous. Case in point, probably MUFON. They can monitor civilian UFO research and generate revenue. So there are lots of reasons why that would happen. I'm here with my partner in crime and a person that I have a great deal of respect for. Not only is he an incredible investigator, but he also has the integrity and the drive to come forward and stand up when that is not it's a difficult thing to do. So Phil, thank you for your courage. I really appreciate it. If we had more people like that in this subject, we wouldn't be dealing with the stuff that we're dealing with.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, I think something I need to say is it's been a year. I was fired from MUFON in, I think, February of 2019. So I said, well, what do I have to do with all of this? How does this all play out? I'm still in contact with a lot of different people in different organizations. I've done investigations throughout, that period of time. I also speak with one of the MUFON top directors once or twice a week. So there's a lot of conversation that goes on. There's a lot of feedback, both directions of, kind of the pulse of ufology, I guess, how things are playing out and, how different people are doing their jobs and different things like that. So I am aware of changes within MUFON in the last year. I'm aware of some of the things they're attempting or trying. And I get this stuff firsthand. So that's why I understand kind of some of the backstory of what's going on with all of this.
And I think that the really interesting thing, too, also, there's so many interesting things, Phil. I don't know. I love the people involved in MUFON. I mean, not all of them. But I will say that there are good people. There are good people that play an important role in educating people and not educating people and filling them full of whatever kind of nonsense is going on out there. But there are people that are lending support for people who have had life-changing experiences, and I appreciate that. And I also, am friends with, maybe not after this show, but with several people that are involved high up in MUFON, and I have I wish that the organization was run differently, because it definitely could be an incredible organization, but that unfortunately will never happen. And now that we know that they're into the data game, and oh Lord help us. But so
you ever wonder how all this started? even a year ago. To the Stars Academy come out, prior to that, which I was giving Jan plenty of warnings about that entire endeavor, and he just fell hook, line, and sinker in love with these people. And then you had to Chase Kletsky that was right in there with them. You ever wonder how all this come about, the way it all played out?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that past DOI had a lot to do with this. I know that she had interviewed Luis Alessandro. Her and her husband had interviewed him. I believe there's a lot of introductions that went through that way, and how this, you can almost see how we've been infiltrated, and I hate to use that word, but infiltrated to some extent through her. I don't want to make her any part of this, or to me, she's immaterial at the moment. Okay, she just don't count. But still, she had a big role in all of this. Even a year ago, some of your listeners, the new listeners, or maybe those even back a year ago wouldn't remember, but MUFON had a new team that she created. And she called me up one day, 'cause I was in charge of the case review team. So we looked at incoming cases. We found cases of interest, and we made notations of those. We contacted state directors, said, hey, on a national level, we're going to be watching this particular case because there could be something to it. Okay, so we kind of get a grab on it when it first come in, right? She had called me, DOI called me and said, hey, I want you to give this to, and for the life of me, I don't remember her name. I got it wrote down, but this new girl that's over this new team. And I said, who the hell is it? He said, well, here's her number. Call her and talk to her. I said, okay. So I call her up. I said, hey, this is Phil Leech. I'm director of case review team. I'm supposed to call you and possibly work with you in some fashion. What is it that you need from my team? Well, Chase told me that you're to give me all the top cases that come into MUFON. I said, uh-huh. I said, and what is it that you do? And she really wasn't clear about what she did. I said, what background do you have what is your background? I kid you not. Very impressive background in the military and government and Congress, intelligence, all these things. Very impressive. Okay. I said, how much background do you have in ufology? Because you need to understand what we're trying to give you before you can make determinations of whatever your team's going to do. She goes, well, I just bought the MUFON manual and I'm going to be a field investigator, but I got to take my test. I said, uh-huh.
Well, that about sums it up.
I said, you have any other background in ufology? Because, well, she has me reading a book, Richard Dolan book. She said, I'm about halfway through it. I said, uh-huh. I said, so you want me to send you top cases? And she said, yes. So I hung the phone up. I called Jan up and bitched at him. I said, I'm not doing this. I said, that's just crazy. I don't even know who the hell this is. I said, she's from the government. She had like 10 different titles with the government. I said, and Chase had brought her in. No one knew who this was or what this team did. I asked Jan, I said, do you even know who this person is? He goes, well, I talked to her on the phone once. I said, you did? I said, one time? He goes, yeah. I said, she seemed okay. I said, no. I said, I'm not sending her no cases from my team. It ain't happening. And it didn't. I did not send anything from the case review team that direction. Is it possible Chase did? Because she had access to, there's only 3 or 4 people that could even get this information. It's possible she did. But me, I wouldn't do it. I refused to do it because it just stunk. The whole thing stunk terribly. Chase set this whole thing up. This girl was her friend that lived in the same city she lived in. This girl was nothing more than a government worker that held high security clearances. She was like intelligence for the Congress or something. And it just stunk really bad. And that's right. A lot of that was infiltration, I think. That was during when To the Stars Academy was making their rounds through MUFON too.
Well, and you look at, like I'll say, some of the people that have been involved with MUFON for a long time, they all have interesting backgrounds. And I think, you look at Chuck Modlin, you look at John Schuessler, some of these people, very interesting. Chuck Modlin, this is really interesting, worked with various alphabet agencies with a top secret clearance, and he was head of secret projects. And this is interesting, including lasers near S4. He worked at Lawrence Livermore Labs. Background includes radiation, radar systems, missile systems, telemetry, lasers, electronic sensing devices, yada, 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 yada. So, I mean, there are people when you really start looking with backgrounds and you wonder, what's happening?
See, that's a very good point. If you look at it a different way, though, MUFON does have very talented, even here in Indiana, some of the field investigators I got to know very well. Some of these people work for NASA. I mean, they have the incredible backgrounds. I imagine it's like that on a wide, broad scope within MUFON. There's plenty of talent there. Now ask yourself, why is MUFON not using that talent? Why don't they have the scientists? Why don't they have the specialists and the physicists and all this already? These people have been in business 50 years. Why is that not lined up and working well? They don't want the answer. They don't want to know that there's only 2 or 3% that's worthwhile even looking at. They don't want to know that. Or else they would have this stuff in place. They don't have the evidence people, the labs, and all these things that you would need to run this type of organization. They have the talent. We all know they have the talent. Jan just don't know how to either ignoring the talent, which I think is what's happening. Okay, I don't think they want the interference from the scientific community involved with MUFON cases because the truth comes out at that point.
Well, I think there's definitely a lot more than that meets the eye. But let's talk about Argentina.
Okay. I'm gonna be cautious because one of the first people involved I know, so I'm gonna make sure I don't use their name. A year ago, MUFON claims they keep everything nice, safe, and secure. Well, there was a huge paper wrote on Argentina because that investigator had found some inconsistencies, some very weird stuff going on in Argentina, almost cult-like. So that person wrote a paper that was designed for internal use. DOI decided she actually printed the whole thing on Facebook, just released it all. Well, this paper had case numbers with witnesses' names attached to it. And this went live on the media. And it was a lot of names and a lot of people. And Argentina found out about it. Argentina, I guess MUFON, they have a name for their group over there too, but anyway, they found out about it. They started sending emails to headquarters threatening to sue everybody. They started sending emails to the investigator to sue them. They sent emails, they was going to kill that person's dogs.
I mean, honestly, I will say that, I mean, and not the last part, but I mean, when you have that kind of violation, I mean, I think that it's important to stand up and say, hey, we're going to sue you for doing something that is absolutely unethical and not what you promised.
They're still pissed off over it. And I think a lot of this, and this is MUFON's typical, I'm not going to give an answer. I turned loose where they was doing background checks. So what does MUFON do to battle this? They come out and they say, it's not illegal. We're allowed to. There's no legal problem with it. They don't say we shouldn't be doing that. They don't say anything like that. What they do is they go through MUFON. Now keep in mind, MUFON's database, everyone fills out something called a Form 30 when you finish a case. And if you're a chief investigator at state director, you can go over, like from Indiana, and look at Illinois cases and look at these Form 30s. So what do? They confine everything to the state. The state director of Indiana can't even read a Form 30 in Illinois. So they can't read the case file in Illinois. That way it doesn't happen again. Someone like me doesn't come out and say, hey, this state is doing background checks. I have no way of knowing that because I can no longer read the case file. I can only read some of the beginning report information. Okay? That was their answer to this whole thing. It's not an answer that they're not doing it anymore. Who knows? I hope that they're not. I hope they're smart enough, but who knows, because they've made it so each state is itself, its own little island. You can't look around MUFON anymore and read the case files and see the dispositions and things like that. That was their answer to this problem, and that is not a correct answer.
And I, again, I'm having flashbacks to my time there. I mean, as a state director who wanted to learn as much as I could and wanted to conduct investigations properly, I mean, it was always interesting to me that I couldn't look at cases. And I don't care about the witness name or the address or anything, but that I couldn't, look and learn at some of the big cases. And, the Chris Bledsoe case comes to mind. That was a huge case. And we know that Bigelow definitely had interest in that. And that was when I went to look it up, and when Norm Gagnon, who was one of the investigators, went to look that case up, everything had been, except for maybe 2 small paragraphs, had been deleted from the case reports. And I just thought, that's very odd. And the same thing with Elaine Douglas. She was very concerned about missing files and about all of these different things and people's, information being bought and sold and different things. I mean, there's so many questions.
Well, there is. I mean, I really paid close attention probably from 2018, 2019 to CMS system. When I was working on the book with Roger Marsh, Cases of Interest book, and then case review team, I was just really looking at everything. I mean, just everything. We, old cases, new cases, just trying to see what we could find. And you start seeing a few inconsistencies. I can't say there's hundreds of them, okay? But I do know that a couple of my people that was on my case review team, I had numerous people on there that worked for me. One time the guy called me up and he said, there's a case just come in. And for him to say this he had to be doing some, because this guy's hard to please. He said, most compelling UFO video I've ever seen. I logged in real quick. Guess what? It's gone. I got a hold of Jan, and he told me he's going to get a hold of somebody else, and it might be gone, but it's never really, really gone. And guess what? To this day, that case was gone and never come back. And we questioned that and did not get an answer for that. So does it happen? It does happen. It happened right in front of me, a few times. Not a lot, but a few times. It's easy to do this. This isn't hard. SCMS administrators, these are people that look at incoming cases, and they take the ones out with cuss words and bad pictures and stuff like that. And as long as they're under orders to do certain things or keywords or photos or something, it wouldn't be hard to do. I don't think they're doing that. I'm not accusing them of doing that. But it would not be hard to do at all. So cases could be filtered into the SAT team or, one of these special teams that's just going to take a look at these extraordinary cases that come through MUFON, because there isn't a lot of extraordinary cases that come through MUFON. Unfortunately, there isn't. There's not. 1 out of 100 might be interesting.
Well, and it would be interesting to know the statistics of the number of reports that MUFON generated 10 years ago as they are today, which I'm sure that has dropped drastically.
Oh, it has. TV plays a lot to do with that. It was one of the holidays, and we was monitoring cases for case review team, and it was Christmas Day. And I told my team, I said, I'll cover the entire day. You guys enjoy Christmas. Don't even open it up, CMS, and look at it. I got it. Normally, I think we was averaging 20 to 25 cases that would come in per day. On Christmas Day, they played a whole bunch of UFO-related shows on TV. I got like 70 reports. Worked me to death that day. So TV plays a lot into how many reports you get, but the caseload's got to be down now. This way I understand it. They'll tell you different, but they'll holler they got 6,000 to 8,000 cases per year. Cases have been down. I've spoken with too many investigators, say they used to do cases all the time, and they're lucky to get 1 or 2 every 2-3 months now. So that's not even mentioned of God knows how many states there's nobody even in, 15, 17 states. So who knows how many states now that there's just absolutely no MUFON people in those states.
Well, and you know what is curious to me? It's like you've got this organization, everybody is coming in. It's like the lady that you were talking about that was in the intelligence community who came in and had, I'm going to read the MUFON book. And there's such a varying degree of intelligence and expertise in this, and then you get people investigating cases, and they're investigating cases, but unfortunately they're using personal beliefs to rule on a case, or perhaps they're being manipulated, or perhaps, whatever. And so you have no, like, at the end of the day, when the case is investigated, there's no integrity there. And so to me, the critical thing is getting the data the second it hits the CMS, not after it's been investigated.
And that's what the case review team did. The minute it was reported, we looked at it. Very successful team. They closed that team up, by the way. They realized they thought they didn't need that, but very successful. We used it for the media side of things. If we had good cases, we used it for good cases in general. Did we need, special type stuff going on with a particular case? Did one land or crash or whatever that might be? We was on top of that right away. There was no delay. Like right now, there's a delay. A case could come in to see a brand new UFO report. They got 20, depending on what category, according to MUFON, category 1, 2, or 3, you have 24, 48, 12, 24, 40, whatever, how many hours you have to get, days to make contact with the witness. Well, hell, some investigators in some cases would sit there for weeks, and it could have been a good case. And then they go to try to call and they wouldn't answer, or that evidence could be gone by then, I guess. But let me tell you something about the database real quick, and this is something I thought about. To the Stars Academy, I hired a guy to do statistics and look at database information, crunching numbers type thing. He works with artificial intelligence, which means he's going to look at keywords on cases and data. You can't do that. You can do it, but it's not going to be successful. You cannot do it with UFO-related cases that come in. I've done too many. I've been around the block too long. A good case could start out as a light in the sky and end up something fantastic. The case now depends on, like you said, how it's wrote up and how it's closed and the wording that they use. It's all based on that investigator that's doing it. These cases, you got to look at these things one at a time. You got to nitpick these things to find the good cases that might have something of value to it, not monetary wise, but to ufology. So anyone to think they're going to look at any databases and go, okay, well, we got 15% are unknowns. That's just nuts. 12% of them are closed improperly. They don't have the right disposition. The guy didn't know it was a damn bird that was flying across the sky. For anyone to think they're going to come out with anything out of all of this, it's. Oh, I hear your music.
Yeah, I know. We're going to be right back. I'm Erica Lukes here with Phil Leech, and we'll catch you after the break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Immerse yourself in an epic journey through time where ancient mysteries unfold within a story of love and betrayal, as well as a battle of good versus evil in The Emissary Book 1. The reader's favorite Gold Medal Award winner for Visionary Fiction 2019, The Action and Adventure of The Emissary continues in The Emerald Tablet, Book 2. The 2019's Bronze Medal Award winner, The Emissary and The Emerald Tablet by Tamara Leech and Rennie DeFazio are both available now on Amazon.com. Let your reading adventure begin.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare, and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
It is always with great sadness that I come back for my last segment. I could talk and talk and talk and be here for hours. I just enjoy what I do, even though sometimes it can be a bit daunting. Since the Chris Bartell story has broken about Skinwalker Ranch, and especially over the past couple days, I've been experiencing some pretty interesting interference, and I know that will continue to happen. I know that there are forces at work that have tried to kind of infiltrate my little bubble and are trying to get information in attempts to steer the narrative, and that's great. I look forward to having more attacks take place on social media and whatnot, but it'll be a good time. But I know that I've hit something that is incredibly important, and I think that James Carrion also did as well. And he wrote a blog, and it is really interesting. I just want to read a little teeny bit that he wrote, a letter, and the portion of this letter says, it is my belief there are forces at work here that manage ufology for their own purposes. When an organization like MUFON starts to operate outside the box they intend to keep us in, then these controlling forces move in to tighten their grip. Case in point, MUFON's relationship with Bass. Although John Schuessler knows who Bass's sponsors are, I am no longer comfortable with the MUFON-Bass relationship. And it goes on and on and on, and it is really telling to me because Carrion got a bad rap, and was trying to shine a light on things. Are there two sides to the story? Of course there are, but he had questions, as we all should now, especially that we're learning more information. I fully believe that, Skinwalker Ranch and the narrative that was promoted was a smokescreen for other things. Is there paranormal activity in the area? I'm sure there is everywhere. But I hope more information comes out. And in the meantime, I hope everybody that I love and care about will continue to be safe. So I am here now with Phil Leech, who is another person that dares to speak the truth, that dares to ask questions, and questions that most of us should be asking. Far too long this community has been riddled with intelligence agencies, with people that are spreading disinformation, with people that are delusional, and organizations that are not operating for the benefit of mankind. We're talking about one of those organizations this evening. So, Phil, welcome back.
Hello. Hey, real quick, your first guest, I just want to say, I listened to her story, and how she perceived what went on, which maybe was different than what was actually going on to something a little bit, right? I mean, maybe he didn't tell her everything, but I wish MUFON and these organizations, to the stars, ufology affects people. It affects families, all the way down to grandkids, and stories that we'd be told for 100 years. So all of this is very important of what all of us do. Why am I even talking now with you about any of this? How do I play into any of this? Well, let me explain. I spent my time with MUFON. I investigated those cases. I created projects, directed special teams, the whole thing. It was very important to me to find answers to what was going on. It's important to all these MUFON people to some extent, unless you're up, high up, they don't care. But it's important that we're still looking for this answer. And for those people at the top that really don't care about that answer, not to really put that effort into getting that answer, because I'm telling you, that effort is not there, especially with MUFON, to find that answer. It is not there. That's important to me. When you start talking about databases and buying and selling and who could end up with this information, MUFON, if you're listening, I'm damn sure you are. You better keep in mind that for 50 years you had investigators, you had directors, you had lonely people at the bottom, you had all of these witnesses that trusted you this entire time with their data, with their information. Doctors, lawyers, cops, you name it, they've all made reports. I've spoke with some myself. Be careful what you do, because everyone is watching, and this is why we're doing this show, so everyone will watch, so you do the right thing. MUFON has decided to play with a couple friends of mine, okay, who I consider very good friends. If you continue to do that, if you continue to play games, you will hear more from me each and every single time. Now, you're going to say, Phil ain't got this right. I'm telling you as I know it or as I believe it. If I'm wrong, I more than welcome you to come on a show. We'll go on Erica's show. Any of you, jump in here. We'll have a little panel discussion. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure Erica would allow that. You hear each side of the story. But you can guarantee him I'll call you out on some things you're not going to be able to answer in the public. So be careful what you do. Everyone's watching. The information is valuable, not just to everyone. I have witnesses that if I would call right now and go, I don't know what's happening with your data, they'd have a damn stroke. I'm sorry, right. Erica. Go ahead.
No. I mean, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like people are, they're trusting an organization to be forthright, and take care of information that is being provided. And we know time and time again, like I said, the John Carpenter affair, the Bigelow acquisition of the database, and different things that data is. It doesn't mean people don't mean a lot to the upper echelon of the organization. And
they don't. They don't. They did. No, don't get me wrong. They're not going to come out and publish a list of names and addresses and just flat out do it, through the MUFON name. They're not going to do that. Okay. Don't think for a minute that information isn't secure. They've made it a little more secure now because they compartmentalized everything to states. But that don't mean somebody in Indiana can't go look at all the Indiana files and read them and copy them and have them in their desk drawers. I mean, I know a director that's told me recently that he's copied every file that's come through MUFON.
Yeah, that's alarming in and of itself. But I think the more alarming
I asked this question. I did. I said, is it names and addresses and email, the whole file? Yep, copied all of it. Well, hell, they got their own database set in there. And I'm not saying that there's not a lot of MUFON people that do that, because I know a lot of people, especially their own, investigations. They copy all this information, they keep it. It is scattered throughout everywhere. It's probably thrown in dumpsters when they die, or sold in a rummage sale in a box. Who knows? But that information isn't as secure as they tend to make. They try to make it out to be. It is not.
Well, I mean, when you're purposefully selling all of that information, I mean, of course it's not secure. And those things just, there were a few brave people, especially when the Carpenter affair happened, that actually had the ethical compass that they actually took MUFON and the board of directors to task. And of course, nothing ever happened with that. It's like, MUFON's defense, it's the two-step sidestep shuffle that they do when they're called on the carpet for discrimination or various other things we could go into, but this is serious. This is it's a breach of trust at the very least, and I think that we need to understand, and I truly think people need to, if they have a sighting, gather information, keep it to themselves. At this point, because I can't work with people that are trusted, because at this point in time, I don't really trust any of the individuals that are collecting data. What is the purpose? I am beginning more and more to think that the purpose of collecting data for these big organizations is the fact that they're monitoring weapons or military testing.
Oh, any of it's possible. I mean, I really, really hope that we're all completely wrong with all of this, and something good's going to come out of everything. I doubt it. If you look at the past history of any of this, if you look at To the Stars Academy, it come out of nowhere. All of a sudden, there are big kids on the block. And I understand that, they got the money to back them. They got the money to do what they want. I mean, they paid $30,000 for a freaking rock. So anyway.
Now, what rock did they pay $30,000 for?
I don't want to get into all that.
Okay.
It's on you can find it. Any one of you can find it on the internet. There's a person that's been in ufology a long time that had supposedly a piece of an alien spaceship. Had a little chunk of it, and they've come out and said they paid $30,000 for that piece of alien spaceship. You have to ask yourself why. I guess if it is real, it means something to someone, some type of specific metal that no one's never seen before. But it's when you're throwing that kind of money around, $30,000 for a space rock, a piece of an alien ship, which maybe it's real, 20 to 50 grand for some databases isn't a lot of money compared to a piece of metal. So it's not out of bounds to think that could be behind a lot of this data, collecting this data. I hope MUFON. I told Jan a long time ago. I said when To the Stars first started, he had his reservations. I seriously had reservations, and I said, listen. I said, not that they're not going to do good, whatever they're trying to do, because that time we really didn't know. I said, but the DOI at the time, okay, Miss BJ, she was telling them, trying to get Jan on board with a lot of this stuff. And I said, Jan, MUFON doesn't follow anyone. We need to lead the way. Okay, we don't have to sit back and wait to see what the next best thing is. For God's sakes, you get how many cases a freaking month and a year? You got to be something good come out of all of this. Lead the way. Get out there. Do your job. Well, didn't listen to me at all. And as far as I'm concerned, they're still playing second fiddle. They need to be leading the way. They have no one leading the way right now that I can see. At least I've never heard of anything. I could be wrong. I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm thinking I'm not. I speak with a lot of people and MUFON. Keep this in mind, Jan. I know you're listening, or somebody's going to send you this show. Things are not as secure as you believe they are. Everyone has friends. There's been a person in your staff meeting, weekly staff meeting. During the meeting, put your ass on hold and talk to me during the staff meeting. I should scare the crap out of you by itself. So you go figure that out. But things are not as secure as you believe they are. It never will be. Like you say, it's a volunteer organization, right?
Well, and I think, unfortunately, that was that's always the excuse that's used. Oh, it's a volunteer organization, so we can only, get what we get and deal with what we have. That's such a load of nonsense. I mean, if you have people who have integrity and you set the standards from the high ups on down, any organization should be run ethically and with professional standards. And so that's always been an excuse for leadership.
They have a manual, state director handbook that has the rules in it. I have a copy. I've always had a copy. I get all current copies when they're made. And they just came out with a new one not long ago. I've got that copy. And when they need it is when it's used. That's it. They don't follow it any other time. But if they need it, it's there if they need it because it's in black and white and it's wrote down and we got to go by the rules at their convenience.
Yeah, at their convenience, exactly. And when I went through what I went through at MUFON and things, and you can read, there's an article, Newsweek, you can Google my name or MUFON, and you can read that article. I thought I was doing the right thing and telling people and asking for help and all of this stuff, and yet that fell on deaf ears. It's like, it's just, it's just
one of the
amazing.
biggest problems I've had is the ERT team with MUFON. It's not that those are bad people. Do not get me wrong, okay? Because I really know them. I don't think anybody really knows them in MUFON because all of these cases that has to do with entities or close encounter are filtered through this this special team that deals with this type of stuff. You don't get anything back from them. You don't get any at the end of the year. You don't get statistics. There is no. Here's a paper. This is how many cases we did. This is our findings. Here's updates. Here's what we think is the most common. All these types. It's like it exists by itself over there somewhere, and it's always been a complaint throughout MUFON the whole time I've been with MUFON. So where does these close encounters with these entities go? Where do they go off to? Because you never see them again. You never hear nothing. It's pathetic, and we have witnesses that's calling us up going, hey, what did they find out? Or what's the end result? Or blah, blah, blah. We can't get answers for that.
It's just, it's curious. I mean, and I want to say too, because I know we're kind of running out of time. You and I are both painting a narrative for people. We're giving people information, and people should be really digging into this and doing their own research. And I want to throw this out there because we know MUFON we know what MUFON is, but. I wanted to point people in the direction, especially with all the Skinwalker Ranch stuff coming up, and we notice that they're always the same players and the same people involved in this on the periphery. I want to encourage people to learn about the Paul Benowitz case and look at the people involved in that and look at what happened to him. And Greg Bishop, my friend, did a great book on that, but I fully believe that some of that is taking place here and now. But what are Phil, at the end of the day, what are your thoughts on this? How much of a role does the intelligence community have in trying to get in here and muck up the waters?
I hope I'm wrong. But if you just write this down on the chalkboard, just what you know, okay, and the time frame and all of this, it only points to one thing. It points back to the Stars Academy. I hope they're doing a good job. However, I'm sorry, they're all ex-government workers. It's retired or in their words. But they'll tell you in the same breath they're not ufologists. That should scare everybody in ufology. Why people who are not ufologists want everything from ufology? Did anybody put any thought to that at all? I don't understand it. I don't know why people's falling for this. I don't know why they're willingly, other countries are giving them database information. Just hand it to them. That's just nuts. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that, they need to come out, and they're not going to. We'll be lucky if we hear anything from anyone. This will all happen. There will be anything you can do about it. You can't battle some things. I want everyone who has a vested interest in this, whether you're a lonely little field investigator or you're up there in the world with MUFON or New Fork or any of these organizations, second guess what's going on right now. See what role you're playing in all this. Maybe you're being a little blinded by the light. If you think you're doing the right thing, go ahead and do it. But put a lot of thought to this. For all your listeners, say something, write something, do something, make a phone call. MUFON's got a straight-up phone line right up to the office up there. Ask these hard questions. Because a lot of people deserve answers. It's put their lives into this, their entire lives, trying to get answers of something that's affected them personally on the most part. It's not happening. It's never happened. And make them show what they're doing. They claim they're teaching all of us about ufology on their website. They ain't taught the public shit. Never have. I've had that conversation with them. Okay, I said, why don't we start putting pictures of UFOs that it's birds and balloons that we know what they are. That way the public knows. Don't report it. It's a freaking bird.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. You know why they don't want to do that? Because Jan says we got to have the cases coming in. We can't have less cases. So they make an investigator write a whole damn report when we know it's a freaking bird right off the bat. That's how much.
Yeah. And that's the thing that, when I was working, and I was right under Harzan. I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff and making good strides, I thought, to improve the integrity of the organization. But it was just, I would ask him some of those questions. It's like, what are you guys doing with the data? Why haven't you done A, B, C, and D? Why are you still here 50 years later? And now it's all becoming clear. As you stated, it's not because they're actually trying to solve the problem or do any good work or empower the people that are paying to be in the organization. It's because they're trying to muddy the waters, and it's really sad. We deserve so much better than this. And
the American people, those in MUFON, you're being lied to. When you get up to the top, they know what they want. They know how to get it. They know what's valuable monetarily. Make no mistake about it. All your work that you're doing is important to you. When it gets up to the top, unless it's outstanding and there's a way to do something with it and make a little bit of money or make themselves famous, because they ain't gonna make your ass famous. That's what means something to them in the end result. Those big numbers, that's what means something. It's a numbers game. You're just worker ants. I mean, unfortunately, that's the truth.
Yes, and it is interesting, and I just want to say this. There's another organization that shall remain nameless that has popped up recently, and it is interesting to me. I was looking back at some of the pictures of one of their conferences, and it's amazing to me to see some of the same people, same faces, to the stars, some of the people that were in the aviary, different things like that were in attendance. And so it's like, okay, so have things shifted over there? And what are they doing? Do they have a vested interest in collecting UFO data? It's interesting, but I would just say people pay attention, ask questions, look at history. The history is very, very telling. The UFO subject has been used as a smokescreen for other governments to hide secret testing and all sorts of things. I'm sure that is absolutely the case here. I feel that, like I said at the beginning of the show, I've had incredible experiences in my life, and they've empowered me. It has instilled a passion in me that I want to get to the truth. I want to learn more. And it's been I think for you too, Phil, it's been a sad thing to see that there is so much of this nonsense going on here in the United States, and this seems to be just a thing that's taking place in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. There's a wall. There's a certain line, and you hit that line or that wall right there, and it's done. It stops right there. I can't tell you when what outstanding cases come to MUFON. A lot of them make the journal, and maybe a radio show or something. When's the last time they took stuff to the government? Shouldn't they be going to the government saying, here, we got all this data, all this MUFON CMS data. Here's all these pictures. Here's all this, these unknowns, and go there and say, hey, something's going on. These things don't happen. You're just doing the same thing over and over and over. They're not making any strides to get better or trying to prove something. They're only proving it to themselves.
It's interesting, but again, I know that after this show airs, and even now, I'm sure the powers that be are at work to try to say that we're MUFON bashers, and we should get a life and do all the typical things that they've been doing forever. We know how this works. And there's a big team out there. We've seen that with To the Stars Academy. We've got people that are out there promoting things. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what. But we know that's going to come.
People need to realize that there's, I sound like I'm a MUFON hater. They have their place in the world. I want them to be a little better at their place in the world rather than just the same old humdrum get through the year. They should be doing a lot more. They've been around 50 damn years. All this should have been much better many, many years ago. To go through the same motion, the same little game that they're playing. You need to get better at what you're doing. You got the resources. If you don't, go find the resources. Don't sit in your office and don't have an answer. You should always have an answer for whatever's going on. You're teasing your membership. You're lying to your membership. All these things that you say that you have that you don't have. That sounds illegal to me in some source, but I'm not a lawyer. But it sounds illegal to portray to anyone. If you join us, we have this, 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 and this. And when you get there, they don't have any of it. It's like going to a hotel, a 5-star hotel, and it's a 1-star hotel, So they can get better. They shouldn't be following people. Am I a MUFON hater? I'm a little aggravated with what they did to me, how they did it to me. Not as much anymore. And trust me, I don't follow all these bull crap on Facebook and the internet. Y'all can write anything you want. I'm probably not going to see it or read it, and I really don't care. I've been through all this way too long with these people. But you need to understand there's plenty of people right now looking for a class action lawsuit. There's plenty of people that if you mess with, that you got people like me coming out of the woodwork.
Good.
Saying things.
And thank you. And we've got to wrap the show up, Phil. You've been amazing. And I also want to thank Michelle for being here. She's going to be coming back to talk more about her experiences in the Uinta Basin next to Skinwalker Ranch. People, pay attention. Make sure you are looking. Don't follow the brightest shiny object. There is something going on, but it is not what you're being fed now. So anyway, have a great night. Solaris Blue Raven is up on Willie Miranda next. That's going to be a killer show. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting